in which majority of its members are present shall be meetings open to the public, except as provided by rules adopted by the said boards and commissions. That's the issue that they had with that. It's like, how can a board and commission adopt rules contrary to ORC? So the proposed language says, all meetings of each board and commission shall comply with all rules for notification of meetings to the public, and all meetings of any board or commission in which majority of its members are present shall be meetings open to the public, except as provided for in the Ohio Revised Code.
That was for.
I don't think that changes the way we operate right now.
No.
Yeah, on safety, the members are Maria and I, and
Yeah.
the chief and Yvonne, and they're all members of it, are they not?
Well,
Or
the
are Maria and I
We are.
Well, not, it's
Yeah.
committee of
There's
council.
a media too, yeah,
You know,
the same thing as the law.
Committees are different than boards and commissions, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but, you know,
The
safety.
committees are all
safety-
part of the council.
You guys are the safety committee, and the
Yeah.
chief and the manager and the fire chief are all sort of ex officio
Okay.
yeah.
members of that committee because they're the safety people, you know, your two safety department chiefs and their superior.
So regardless,
It's you and Maria.
yeah.
Yeah,
You and if
So one
council
of us, even
committees.
if one of us is there, basically every meeting is a public meeting.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it should be.
yeah.
Okay. So that's the thing, that's a streamlining deal. And number 14 is the typos. I don't know that this is actually anything that needs to be discussed or voted on, to tell you God's honest truth. Capitalize, and spell correctly. English teacher. So, what? No, we don't. No, yeah, I was joking. I don't think, honestly, and we can seek guidance from Forbes about this, but I don't think that's anything we need to put on the ballot. You know, typographical errors. The rest of the stuff, the other 13 items, if council so chooses, have to go on ballot for approval by the elect.
Oh.
Now, in November,
It was.
if the approval was just accepting by the voters, just accepting all of it.
Yeah, so,
Correct.
you know, that you could propose, you'll propose to the voters, a ballot issue, which either addresses every one of these things individually, addresses them all as a group, or you could choose the Waynesville, thing and try to do them all in 3 different groups, like an administrative, you know, an elections one and a commissions one. I don't know, or an elected officials one and commissions one. However they did, they all 3 failed. Or you can choose not to, you know, you can pick and choose what you please, and that is that's the decision you're facing, ladies and gentlemen. How you care to deal with that?
Mechanically, what committee does this go through to get it under the ballot? Is it possible?
I would guess so, yeah.
Well, we have a meeting coming up, Mr. Walterman is
So,
coming back. So
yeah,
we'll
you guys
this
discuss
then.
that.
Yep,
All right?
And then,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this when we did it on focus sheet number 2 on the Powers Council. We talked as a group one time about maybe defining the commons, because right now, you know, what is the commons? If you don't live in Greenhills, what is the commons? The commons is, it wasn't identified on the map anywhere, and it was, it's not.
It
It is now on the map.
It is identified on the map now, yeah.
Yeah, but do we need, should we say, just so there's no mistake and no confusion, the commons being a greenbelt area bounded by, you know, Enfield,
I
Farragut.
wouldn't call it a greenbelt area because it's not a greenbelt.
Well, okay,
But
greenbelt,
a
the
green
commons
space,
is an
if you call
area.
it a green space, and, yeah, I mean.
Should we put that in there just so in the future there's no mistake about what the commons is?
Mhm.
Or is it worth really revising? talked about that.
I agree with you, Ms. Bowles.
I would like to have it defined just to make sure.
Because the comments may not be the same to everybody unless
I
they're.
thought we
from
had
here.
already decided that we were gonna do that.
On the
Well,
map.
map.
On the
On the
map.
zoning map,
The zoning map it is.
on the zoning, on the map that you're,
Versus the charter.
that you're being asked to adopt in March.
But the charter gives, certain areas extra protection.
Yeah.
Well, then this charter is, all the ordinances are subordinate to the charter, right? So, if you define
Isn't the map subordinate to the charter?
yeah, and that's, it'll be adopted by ordinance, therefore it's subordinate to the charter, so yeah, I mean, if it's your pleasure to do that, you will.
Well, I don't agree, I don't believe in doing things that there's no reason to do them. I wanted to bring it up because.
Yeah,
it's
well,
been
as I
discussed.
said, it's,
Well, I agree with you because 30 years from now, 40 years from now, how maybe somebody that's sitting in council is going to figure out where the commons is located unless we put in there the streets.
having lived here since 1961, it's never been an issue to me to know where the hell the commons was. I looked out the window of the school and I saw the commons every day.
I think it doesn't hurt to define it.
Yeah.
To be specific.
Worst case scenarios, some guys said, I want to do this with that.
Well, yeah,
And then,
well,
bring suit because it's not really defined. You just say
What
comments.
about the golf course? Did you find where the golf course is? It's obvious now, but 30 years from now. If it's all overgrown.
But it's on that map,
There's
right?
no flag
Right,
law.
exactly.
it's on the map,
It's
it's on the map, so,
Yeah.
if you really feel like it needs to be defined specifically in the charter,
Have your committee tell us.
have a committee tell us, have the committee tell council, that's fine.
Okay.
If not,
Yeah, we can discuss that.
yeah, you guys
Yeah.
hash that one out,
Yeah.
alright? Okay, that brings us to the tax equalization board discussion. Maria?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we can have some perimeters and start that in case that we suddenly find out that we have to blacktop the back of it, and we have something in place, because the last time it took 8 months to really rehash the whole thing, and be able to have somebody else except the taxpayer put the bill for that. That's my one item, and the second item was, maybe I don't know where it's written or how to find it, but a review of meeting cancellation policy. I ran into 2 meetings that I planned. I had 3 meetings that one night, and I thought I'm going to plan for the meetings that I have to do with the village. And maybe later on was a sign saying cancel, whatever it was. I was there, and I was alone in that parking lot for about 40 minutes. When I was trying to find somebody to tell me what's going on, and I was able to get Jeff to tell me, hey, that meeting was canceled, by the way, the one after that is also canceled. And so I missed the 3rd meeting because I had planned for those 2. And then, strangely enough, I met my co-chair in there, and he shows up for the beautification meeting, and he says, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be for a charter meeting, and that meeting was canceled. And so I don't know what the steps are, and I know somebody brought it up for the charter, and they said that that's not their concern. That is per committee, how to regulate that. So maybe
I
I
thought
just.
Kathy sent out a nice procedure to.
That's what I'm wondering if, I asked Kathy to guide me on that and what to do with that, and she said that whether or not we will take that as a procedure, a protocol to follow, in other words.
I'm fine with it.
And that was, like, whoever's canceling the meeting to make it up to the building to write it up.
Yep.
And if time permits, if it
Because-
happens while the office is still open.
Yeah. Because the answer I got was, well, I called the members and I said, yeah, but it's a public meeting. The public didn't know, didn't have a way, or maybe I didn't find it, but I couldn't find a way when I went back home to find out.
And, you're right, we owe it to,
I think we owe it to the citizens.
and that's a good,
Obviously, it doesn't happen much because it hasn't come up in the last 6 or 7
Well,
years.
it's funny that happened twice to
in the
be able
same
to be
night.
the same
Yeah.
time, twice in 2 days to Bud, was the same thing.
Yeah, it hadn't happened for 8 years.
It only came
Yeah.
up, it only came up when Maria went to every meeting that's possibly good. That you could.
Well, the third one
when I just didn't see it. And Tony Shore and Heather were there too, and they didn't see it, they were wandering around in a glaze too, wondering where everybody was. But it was actually on the sign.
No, if it's on the sign, you did read it.
There,
You don't
yeah.
have right to complain.
Well, I actually called up the municipal building and they took care of it before that, because people were calling me up and letting me know they wouldn't be able to make it, we weren't gonna have a quorum.
But I
Yeah,
was
for
also,
emergency, I'm not sure what you
Well,
do
the
there.
Yeah.
only other possibility is if there is some attention resource-wise towards the website, it's a good place to post really clean, you know.
Well, and there were, in fact, I forget which ones they were, it was actually over a weekend, might have been the charter, and I did find out and I did get it up there, I'm like,
Good.
I'm not necessarily in the loop either, like that recreation meeting, it was the next day before I knew that one got canceled. Like,
there was a
so-
planning and the recreation both canceled.
So, you know, it gets to be, we wanna try to take advantage of, these social media things. Is there gonna be a Twitter feed? Village Twitter feed?
Not for my committee, I'll tell you that right now.
Somebody wanna manage that?
Do it.
I think, you know, struggle along with the,
Spend on something.
We got a new policy that was proposed by Kathy. Everybody thinks it makes sense, let's run with it a while, if it doesn't, we'll adjust.
I'm okay with that.
What's
I
the
just-
policy?
That if it's your meeting to run and you have to cancel it, notify the people on the committee, and then for the public, be there, or have a sign up in the entranceway that says the meeting's been canceled.
I did it.
All right.
That's one other thing we could do would be to post a sign, and then up at the top of the steps, have somebody with a ping pong paddle. If somebody walks up to it and says, what happened to the meeting? And you whap them in the forehead with a ping pong
Good
paddle.
sign.
You say, go downstairs and read the sign.
Okay.
But,
So,
okay, so we will abide by what the suggestion
Okay.
as a protocol. And then how about the tax equalization board to have something in place whenever powers to be says we got to blacktop the back of this, because miraculously the taxes were paid, and the concern that we had at the time was the foreclosure, taxes haven't been paid, but yet the taxes were paid, and
Well, I think there was more to that, because it's an unusual use of assessment.
And one property owner involved, that was
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
So I think that we would be setting a different kind of precedence.
Oh, it's-
It's part of that.
but it's provided for the higher revised code.
It's provided
Yeah.
for, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do it. And I'm philosophically opposed to it. Number one, whether it's Mr. Huttenbauer or Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith or whoever, they're paying property taxes, and a portion of those property taxes are to pay for streets. And whether we like it or not, we live in a municipality with an unusual situation where street and parking lot looks the same. Number two, I think we're in a situation right now where we're looking for somebody to redevelop that area. And if we have, and I'm all about lowering hurdles for business, not putting more up. And I think a tax equalization board, to me, anybody that's doing due diligence about why a new board is being established that could potentially assess them, it is a hurdle, not, and a hindrance, not something that's helpful to do that. So right now, I'm philosophically opposed to even establishing the board, but that's just my.
Let's look at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Suppose he owned them.
Suppose you own the
Parking lots,
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
okay,
Yeah.
here's my point. If he owned it, he'd have to pay 100%
Yeah.
if anything happened there.
Mhm.
So no matter, on the way the law reads is you can charge anything up to, I think, 90% or something like that, but you can charge as little as 10% or 25% assessing, or 30% or 50%. You can, I mean, there's a max, but there's no minimum on that. So whatever we pay
Equalize
On
with
that.
that, yeah.
is a good deal for him because he only has to pay the rest.
It's only-
As opposed to owning the lot himself, in which
Well, I
case he
mean,
would
you
have to pay the total cost of repaving and striping it, which is what all these other businesses have to do. I mean, we got a weird situation here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with asking him to pay 50% of doing that, because we're still saving him 50% if he owned them.
Well, you could say that if I owned it, I'd have to pay 100%. I mean, I understand the logic of how you're arriving at that, but the fact is we own it, is one thing. The other thing that we have to look at is what has been the,
We own it, he uses it.
is that?
That's true.
No cost.
But then we
Except
also, then we also.
The people who frequent the businesses.
Yeah, but you couldn't have a shopping center without it.
It's a quirky thing that we parking, but I guess the one thing is the use of that assessment, how has it been, what is, this would be a Jeff Forbes question, how has that been doled out in the past? Since we have an unusual situation, I think you said.
You mean other municipalities, how they use it?
Right.
I talked to Jeff 2 or 3 times on this. Jeff never expressed a concern. He expressed one concern. He said, I don't know, since this is one owner, multiple businesses, I don't know how that would work. He never really rendered an opinion about that. That was an open question.
Right, I'm
The
not
only
saying.
thing he was firm about was, he felt we would have trouble collecting it.
Right, and just what I
And
said
he
is
wasn't
I
gonna
think
pay his taxes. Well, he did pay his taxes.
Oh, no, it's bank fees.
No, yeah,
Or the bank paid, somebody paid it. I don't care where the money came
Yeah, but they're gonna pay.
They don't.
one is, okay, what happens if we do assess him and he doesn't pay? Where's that leave us? Does that also make it more difficult? But
We
is that-
pay it, and then the assessment pays us back, so if he doesn't pay.
And if they're going bankrupt, we are entitled.
If he doesn't pay us back, we're worse off than we are now.
No, well, I don't know about
We've
that.
got a
Let me
piece of
finish
property
my
with the
thought,
lien
if I
against it.
could. Does that make it more difficult for another potential developer if that's like an assessment? In other words, he doesn't pay for the parking. We say, oh, you owe us 50% for the parking lot. Does it put another hurdle in place for
Well,
development?
It's a lien on the property. yeah.
Assuming the developer, well, in the purchase of it, yeah, it would be a lien.
Right, so I'm just saying, we need to have all the cards on the table when we look to do it. I'm not about spending it, and none of us are, I don't think, about spending the money if we don't have to. But we have to look at what's at stake and also look what the history is.
And this is only,
It's easy to say, oh yeah, if he owned it, but he doesn't own it. We own
Well, don't you think that this potential developer purchaser would look at that and say, oh, wait a minute, you mean I don't own the parking lots? I don't have to buy the parking lots? The city owns them, the city maintains them? And all I gotta do is pay 50% of the paving when everything you paid? Well, that's a good deal.
That's a good deal.
Well, you can look at it this way too. If this was Main Street in small town Ohio, with angled parking on each side, which it is. This is a dedicated street with angled parking. Would you be looking at the downtown merchants at struggling Main Street, small town
Honestly-
Ohio, and going after?
Honestly, that's the fact on the front that swung me,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, now, considering that is.
Well, in the back,
The back is,
the main user is, in the summertime, is people that go to our pool.
mhm.
That's who uses that parking
That's
lot.
because the businesses are all closed up in the bottom.
Well, another thing too that was brought up earlier is that if we do this, does it get passed on? Is it another weight on those businesses' shoulders where he'll just pass that cost on to them?
Sure you will, that's
Yeah.
Well,
This
they're
is
paying the
only-
rent anyway, what's the difference?
Well, I mean, some are and some aren't. There's-
You know, I think what's ended up happening with you guys have gotten in this position, and I totally understand, because it drives me nuts when I think about Mr. Huttenbauer, but just by having this experience with him over the past 20-something years, it's really made us upset. And all of a sudden, we feel now it becomes more of a burden.
Honestly, Greg, in my mind, that
That's
doesn't
not
have
an issue.
anything to do with it. I'm
Okay.
just looking at it as a businessman.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to manage village
Yeah.
assets, and I can't understand why, if we've got a legal option to collect some percentage of the cost of redoing that parking lot, why the hell we wouldn't take it?
and it's once every 20 years, it's not that we're assessing every 10 years,
And I know you
or every
want-
5 years.
But let me just.
Well, no, I've heard 1, 2, 3, 4 opinions. It looks like it's this kind of 2-2 deal for this, this thing. I wanna hear from this end of the table, so we can decide, do we hammer on this more? Do we go? Greg? I mean, you got a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb in the middle?
Yeah, I think it's in the middle right now.
Dave?
I'm against it. Couple reasons. One, I agree with everything that Glenn said. And I think we're looking at this as dealing with Mr. Huttenbauer. I look at it more forward thinking as dealing with who's gonna be the next owner. The other thing is, I think the question is, do we get a tax equalization board? I don't think we should establish a board to do this, where I think this is a specific issue
We
that
have to have
when it
that.
comes up, that the council should look at.
We have under law, if we are going to do it, we have to have a tax equalization board.
Right, and I for one do not, I don't.
Okay.
Yvonne?
One of the things that you haven't addressed is particularly looking at the back parking lot. If you have to, if you're gonna create an assessment, it's not just Huttenbauer, it's also the Pony K, and it's also the credit union, and then you get into how do you divide that bill? Is it 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of the half to
Or
each
is
of
it,
those?
yeah,
Or
or is it by usage or whatever? All right, so,
Go ahead, Yvonne. What do you say?
Okay, what I was gonna say, my help right now, we can't afford to do that this year. And I think the best we're gonna do is fill potholes back there. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
Well, and I
And-
have one question.
Sure.
Would the front parking lot not be paved today if we went that route? Or would we go ahead and do it despite that and just send him a bill, and if it never gets paid, you know, would the front parking lot not be paid if we would have gone that route?
And that's a good point, in that this assumes that we're gonna get it, and I think what we're forgetting a bit is what, the law director said about the process and the legality and the expense that it takes to be able to enforce this as well. I think it might, I mean, it's gonna offset some of those savings, that's for sure. Because again, if you remember, it wasn't like you just plop a lien and that's it, and he's gotta pay it.
Right.
You have to go through this entire process, appeals process.
okay, well, so I think the question on the table here right now is Maria's proposal is council interested in pursuing tax equalization board? It sounds to me like Laws and Rules Committee's interested in it. It also sounds like considerable, you've got 2 no votes and 2 votes on the other side of the table. So my suggestion would be, if you're intent on pursuing this, bring a proposal to council and, you know, put it to a vote,
Well,
okay?
let me ask a question first. You have any kind of time frame in mind when you think 15, 16, 2016, when do you think this might, I mean, it's gonna have to come sometime. It's a
Sure,
natural-
you know, and I guess I'm hoping, that sooner rather than later, we will have a development proposal, and then I think we just need to see how all the details of that will shake out. You know,
Well,
what's it gonna
will
be?
we have-
Parking needs,
will we have
yeah.
a notice, like, we'll know within a year when we're kind of planning on doing that?
Oh,
Is that
my
fair,
gosh,
fair to
yeah.
say?
And you're
Well,
gonna
there's
be-
no point doing tax equalization board now if we don't need one until 6 months prior to doing this. So why don't you let us talk to Jeff to see, you know, whether this is a legal option, and I'll find that, and we'll find out, what kind of planning we have to do, and in what time frame, if we decide as a council to do this, to pursue this, what kind of timing it requires, and there's no sense doing it now if we don't have to do it for another year, a year and a
All
half,
right, that's fine.
all right?
Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Ladies and gentlemen,
A motion to adjourn for lunch? Or are we gonna get this over working lunch?
I actually was speechless.
you're speechless. Well, let's say we recess for lunch.
Do we have to second it?
No,